One minute.
Okay.
All right, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. Call to order the regular virtual meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Garnes,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Carter,
Here.
Councilmember Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Woodall,
Here.
City Manager Knopf, Chief of Police Connor,
Here.
Finance Director Dillingham, Cheryl, Community Development Director Caldwell.
Okay, I found it.
There you are, thank you. Community Development Director Caldwell. Water Superintendent Jensen,
Here.
Wastewater Superintendent Taylor,
Here.
Management Analyst Sanborn,
Here.
and City Clerk Dunn is present. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have nothing to report out of closed session. Now I will stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ceremonial matters. None. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, the dialogue with the council or staff is not intended or allowed under the Ralph M. Brown Act. Items requiring council actions not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Are there any hands raised or emails?
Currently no hands raised.
And I have no emails.
Thank you. Well, then, I will wait 2 beats. Have nothing, and I will close public presentation and move on to the consent calendar. Before asking, I would just like to say Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year to Rio Dell. Hope everyone has come into this year with hopes and that, you know, things will get only better. And that's what all focus on, and maybe that's what will happen. So let's focus on everything getting better. Now, on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? Any council member? Hearing none, is there any staff? Hearing none, and if there are no hands raised or emails regarding the consent calendar, I will ask for a motion to approve. So,
Motion to approve, Woodall.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second Carter.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will move on to reports from staff on page 29 of your agenda.
You, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. I just want to provide an update on the seismic event from December 20th. As everybody in town is, and a large part of the county is well aware, there was a 6.2 magnitude seismic event during the day on the 20th. So in terms of just impact to the city, the impact itself was light. There were some items tossed off of bookshelves and whatnot, and beakers broken in the lab, but otherwise city facilities and operations were not impacted. Can't say exactly the same for a couple residences whose water heaters broke off their base, and we had some water leaks that we had to deal with in the immediate aftermath of the earthquake. And of course, several of Grunman's windows broke as well. But overall, the impact was light in comparison to some of the larger earthquakes of the past and the future. And I really do just want to make sure that I give a kudos to Public Works in the police department, who immediately sprung to action to, again, correct those water leak issues and check out all the infrastructure all throughout town to make sure that it was safe for the public, including the bridge and whatnot, to make sure that those facilities were not impacted. So thank you to our Public Works and police department for their prompt response to that. Coming up on your January 18th meeting, we're kind of excited about this project, which we have been shepherding along for a while now with an ad hoc committee of council members Carter and Woodall. We will be bringing forward the facade improvement program draft for the council's perusal and adoption on the 18th. So we're very excited about that. And with that, we are getting back into regular rhythm. Our next council meeting will be on the 18th, and on the 19th, we will have a nuisance advisory committee at 3 o'clock, a meeting at 3 o'clock on the Wednesday following the council meeting. With that, I will return back to the mayor for any questions or comments to staff.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Grimes. I just had a question for the chief. Was there any out of the ordinary actions on New Year's, Christmas that are noteworthy?
Out of the ordinary, no. New Year's Eve was actually relatively quiet. Christmas Day had a couple of people who either attempted suicide or threatened to commit suicide, which isn't out of the ordinary either, but is kind of depressing in a way. It was pretty much business as usual over the holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall.
Yeah, I would also like to thank the police department, the Public Works, and our staff in the office, because I'm sure they had to take in a lot of calls at that point, and plus the fire department. And people noticed that immediately there were people out. The police department was out checking. I had heard they had checked homes for older people to see how things were going, and it was just good. And it was nice that people noticed, and thank you for all your hard work. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. I just had a question for Wastewater Superintendent Taylor. Your report talks about discussing a grant application for the Painter Street upsizing. So I guess my question is two-part. A, how did that go? And B, how did that do during this most recent storm over there?
So to answer the first part of your question, we are basically in the preliminary application process of getting everything all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted in order to submit. We're planning on submitting the application for construction by the end of this month. We're going to have a couple more meetings with GHD to kind of make sure all of our ducks are in a row. And then secondly, surprisingly, our Painter Street manhole, problematic manhole, is actually doing very well considering the amount of rain we've had in such a short amount of time. The guys are out constantly checking manholes and checking on the system and making sure that all the lines are cleared and everything is looking good. But so far, so good. My fingers are crossed that, you know, we'll hold through the winter, but, you know, any sizable rain event, you know, on top of what we've already had could be potentially problematic. So looking forward to moving forward with the grant application and getting some of those problems fixed.
Wonderful. Good news on both fronts. Thank you. And no further questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised or emails?
Still no hands raised at this moment.
And there are no emails.
Thank you. We will move on to special presentations, study sessions. Page 32 in our packet. City Manager, you're on.
All right, thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. We have, starting back on April 21st, the council approved the issuance of a request for proposal for a professional water and sewer rate study. That RFP was developed by an ad hoc committee composed of council members Wilson and Johnson in conjunction with staff. And on July 6th, 2021, the City Council approved the firm of Lekowitz and Sang to conduct a wastewater and water rate study on behalf of the city. So as the council is aware, our primary objective is for the study is to develop a 5-year rate schedule for water and wastewater services that equitably distributes the cost to customers and adequately funds the operations, the debt service reserves, and capital projects of the system. This is a lot of material for the council. This is really the first official briefing and update to the council on this subject. As such, there is no requested action from the council tonight. What we are looking for are questions, comments, or any sort of feedback regarding the material that will be presented to you here shortly. As always, you feel free to also ask questions offline, and we'd be happy to answer those as well following this meeting. I have listed in the staff report some issues to consider for the council. In particular, the fixed versus variable charges, the discounts utilizing PG&E CARES program as proof of eligibility. And then there is also just a briefing on where we're at with the capital projects in both water and wastewater listed below. So I won't go into that particular section of the report, but it is an important piece of the puzzle, and one that unfortunately we will have to wait a little bit longer to get the full funding scenario, particularly for our water capital improvement project and our hazard mitigation projects as well. So with that, we do have Catherine Sang from Lekowitz and Sang, who we have been working with on this report. She's probably joined also by Sophia Mills, who's been assisting her. And we may need a minute or two to make sure that we have the PowerPoint displayed.
Oh, I could share my screen. I have it ready.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Catherine. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. And I apologize. I have a cold. It's not COVID. I've been tested. It's just cold. So I'm sorry, I usually don't sound like this, but I have a presentation. I have a presentation. There's 40 slides, but I'm going to go through some of them quickly. And if you have questions, just stop me and, I'll answer them. But we wanted to give you an overview of where both the water and wastewater fund is now. And we want you and the public to understand why we're asking for these rate increases. Okay, and with that, I will start my presentation. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Catherine Zhang. I'm from Lahovich and Zhang. We just go by L&T because I know that's a mouthful. And we specialize in water and sewer rate studies. Allison Lahovich, who she's actually on maternity leave right now, she actually worked with the city, I believe it was 2016 or 2015, in helping this city convert to a volumetric rate for the sewer rate study. So we're familiar with the city's utility rates. Okay, and here's some background. The water rates have increased each year since 2015. The rate structure was last updated in 2015. You previously had a tiered rate structure, and you also had outside and inside city rates. And that rate study in 2015 simplified your rate structure so that everyone has the same rates, whether you're inside or outside. There is a little exception with the Dinsmore zone, but I will go into that when we go into detail with the water rates. The wastewater rates have increased annually by the change in the CPI since 2013. And as I mentioned, my partner Allison worked with the city in 2014 to update the wastewater structure to add a volumetric component. Previously, you had a flat wastewater rate structure, meaning all customers paid the same rate regardless of water use. So your water and wastewater funds, they're enterprise funds, which means that they're self-supported from rates and charges. You do not receive any funding from the general fund. So all your expenses need to be paid from those rates and charges. And enterprise funds do not receive any tax revenue. And our rate study period covers the 5-year period for this the fiscal year 2022-23 through fiscal year 2026-27. This 5-year period is dictated by Prop 218, which is the maximum period of which a city or an agency can adopt rates. So basically, they want cities to do a review or a study of your rates every 5 years to make sure that your costs are up to date. And our proposed new rates will go into effect July 1st of each year, with the first rate going into effect July 1st of 2022. So as I mentioned, Prop 218 was adopted by the California voters in 1996. It's part of the California Constitution. And Prop 218 basically dictates how property-related charges, meaning water, wastewater, garbage, and now stormwater fees are adopted. It means that rates must be based on the reasonable cost of service, and rates must recover costs based on how customers take that service, meaning that we cannot just randomly charge a customer a rate. We need to show our work and why the rates are being set the way they are. The revenues from rates can only be used for the intended purpose, meaning water rates can only pay for water expenses, and same with wastewater and garbage and stormwater. And as I mentioned, the rates can cover a maximum period of 5 years. So it doesn't mean that a city has to adopt 5 years of rates, but that but that's the maximum period, and it simplifies it for the cities. Typically, you don't want to go through this whole rate study and this noticing of requirements every 2 or 3 years. So 5 years is what we typically recommend. There's also some procedural requirements. The first is to conduct a rate study. The second is that we need to mail a notice to all property owners. Prop 218 specifically says property owners, but we typically recommend mailing a notice to also tenants, since they are often the ones that are paying the bills. The third requirement is to hold a public hearing a minimum of 40 days after the notice is mailed. And this public hearing can be held at a regular council meeting. And rates cannot be adopted if more than 50% of ratepayers submit a written protest, meaning that if customers or ratepayers mail back a protest, and if more than 50% of ratepayers say no, then the city cannot adopt the rates. Okay, so our objectives, financial objectives for the sewer and water fund are the first is to meet debt service coverage. And debt service coverage it's a financial measure of an agency's ability to repay outstanding debt. So both the water and sewer fund has outstanding debt obligations. And when the city agreed to those loans, they agreed to maintain a ratio of 1.20, meaning your net operating revenues over your total annual debt service has to be at least 1.2 times. And the second goal is to meet fund reserve targets. The water and sewer funds currently have an operating reserve fund target of 30% of annual operating costs, and that's pretty standard. We're recommending a capital reserve target of about $1 million, and that's to protect the water and sewer fund in case there's an emergency repair, if there's a leak. We just want to make sure that there's funding for the city to be able to pay for those repairs with cash. And the debt reserve target, and that's part of your covenant when you sign on to these loans, is the city has to set aside at least 1 year's debt service. And the third goal is to maintain positive net operating revenues. This is to ensure that each utility is covering its cost of service, and we don't want to have to dip into reserves if there's multiple years of operating deficits. Okay, so why are rate increases needed? Well, basically we need to fund the cost of providing water and sewer service, and that includes O&M costs, and based on our projections, O&M costs increase about 4% each year going forward. We use cost escalators of about 5% for salaries and 3% for all other costs. So on average, your costs are going up 4% each year, just based on the cost of doing business. Other costs include your debt service payments. We also need to meet that debt service coverage covenant. We also have capital improvement projects. We also want to maintain reserves for emergencies. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of numbers and a lot of scenarios, and it's going to maybe confusing, and I can go through this a few times, but I want to kind of point out the difference between, so there's cash flow scenarios, and these are the scenarios. This determines how high the rates need to increase. And this is based on a financial plan that we incorporated your O&M costs, CIP, debt service. We also included growth estimates, water conservation. So this basically, these cash flow scenarios tell us how high these rates need to go. And then there's a second component of that. It's called rate options. And that determines how these rates are structured. And that's what Kyle had mentioned is we're looking at the fixed versus variable ratio. So basically, we want to look at a fair way to recover these costs from customers. So we look at customer data, consumption use flow, and we're presenting options to the council to give us feedback of how we want to design these rates, because there's an infinite, well, not infinite, but there's many ways to structure these rates, and we just want to make sure that we're proportionately recovering these costs from customers in a fair way. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go into the water rates. Okay, so here is the historical and current monthly water rates. We have a base rate, which is charged for all customers based on an EDU, which is an equivalent dwelling unit. So if you have 2 houses on a parcel of land, you'll be charged 2 times this $49.48. In addition to this base rate, we have this consumption charge, which is based on actual usage. So this is based on how much water you use. And 1 CCF is 100 cubic feet, and that's equivalent to 748 gallons. And in addition to these rates, the Dinsmore zone, which has about 27 customers, they're charged a flat charge currently of $65.66. And that's to pay for the additional costs that the city incurs to provide water service to those customers. So as I mentioned, the fixed charge, so all customers are charged the same fixed charge. Oh, I'm sorry, not based on meter. You're just charged the same fixed charge. Some agencies have different meter sizes, but to simplify, this city just charges the same fixed charge for all customers. And this fixed charge recognizes that even when a customer doesn't use any water, the city incurs costs associated with maintaining the ability or readiness to serve each customer. So the city maintains costs to allow any customer to be able to turn on the faucet and have water running. So this fixed charge is intended to recover the costs of being able, to use water whenever they want. So currently, the fixed charge generates about 74% of total water sales revenues. And the consumption rate per 100 cubic feet is based on a single tier. As in previous years, the city had a tiered rate structure, but because the city just has one source of water, it makes sense that there's only a single tier and that all customers are charged the same. So the consumption rate is intended to recover costs that vary based on the amount of water used, such as utilities, electricity and chemicals. And currently, the consumption rate generates about 26% of total water sales revenues. And that third charge, the Dinsmore Zone charge, that's to pay for the additional operating capital costs for the city to provide water service to the area. And there's about 27 customers in that area. So they're charged more so that the regular city customers do not have to pay for or subsidize these costs for these customers. So here's a general overview of the water system. The city relies solely on groundwater. Raw water is pumped from the infiltration galleries under the Eel River to the city's treatment plant. You have a state-of-the-art filtration system that was completed with the Metropolitan Wells project, and it provides an additional well site, which is an additional layer of water security for the city. So the city's groundwater system is, so the city is also in the process of bolstering your groundwater supply with these projects that I will go into in the next slide. So in terms of water accounts, the city has about 1,500 total water accounts, with single family residential comprising the majority of customers at 76%. And for our projections, we're assuming minimal growth, about 0.5% each year. So in terms of total annual water consumption, the city has been pretty consistent over the past 3 years. There was about an 8% increase in 2021. Single family residential is the blue bars, and on average, they count for about 74% of total water use. Next is multifamily residential in the red, and commercial is the green. And then irrigation is the yellow, and then there's institution and special projects, which are minimal. So water use has remained relatively constant for the past few years. Okay, so this is a summary of the reserves for the water fund. There's about 6 different reserves, including the Dinsmore Zone. Where for the reserve fund targets, the operating reserve is at 30% of annual operating expenses, and we're meeting that. The debt service reserve, we have 1 year's debt service payments. The city's meeting that. And capital reserve, we're proposing $1 million to fund infrastructure projects and emergency repairs on a cash basis. And currently the city is meeting that target. So this is a summary of the past 3 years and the budget for this year of the revenues and expenses. So as you can see, this total net revenues on the bottom, the water fund is doing pretty well. We're in the black, and we're covering our operating expenses and capital expenses. Okay. So this is the summary of a water CIP. So in this red box, these 3 projects, the distribution system upgrade, as well as the Eel River Crossing Pipeline retrofit and the Douglas Tank Seismic retrofit, these are the main drivers of our rate study. The city has applied for grants for each of these projects. For the distribution system, the city has applied for grants with the State Water Resources Control Board. And we will go into the different funding options for distribution system in the next slides. For the Eel River Crossing and Douglas Tank Seismic retrofit, the city has applied for FEMA grants, which are 75% grants and 25% local funding. meaning the city would have to pay cash or borrow money to come up with their portion of these projects. So in total, we're looking at about 15 million in capital needs that the water needs over the next 5 years. So this is the main driver of our water rate study. So based on feedback from the State Water Resources Control Board, we looked at 3 cash flow scenarios. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the cash flow scenarios determine how high the rate increases need to be. And so the State Water Resources Control Board gave us these 3 scenarios to look at. The first scenario would be 100% loan. I guess that would, we kind of would consider that our worst case scenario, meaning that we would have to pay back this 9.5 million over 20 years. The interest rate is 0%. The annual loan payment would be $475,000. Scenario 2 would be a 90% grant with a 10% loan. So the total amount that the city would need to pay back is $950,000. And that total annual loan payment is estimated at $48,000 over a 20-year period. Scenario 3 is our best case scenario in which the city would get 100% grant and we would not need to borrow any money or need to pay back any of that money. Okay, so these are the funding scenarios for the Eel River and the Seismic Retrofit projects. They are, this is through a FEMA grant where it would be 75% grant funded and 25% would be, I guess, local funding. And we're assuming that that 25% would would be through a USDA loan, which the city currently has. And the terms of the loan would be 30 years with a 3% interest. So for the Eel River Crossing Pipeline Retrofit, if the city received the FEMA grant, they would have to fund about 25% or $875,000 of that $3.5 million project. And total debt service each year is estimated at $45,000. Oops, I apologize. For the Douglas Tank Seismic Retrofit, 25% of total project cost, $1.9 million is $475,000, with our annual loan payment estimated at $24,000. So these are the drivers of our rate increases. As you'll see, I know there's a lot of text on here, but we developed 3 cash flows, and these are our assumptions. What I really wanted to point out was that we included a low income discount, and that salaries and benefits, our escalators are 5% for salaries and benefits. All other expenses are 3%. Chemicals, we had to increase about 600%. I know that's looks like a big percentage, but we just did it for 1 year. And the only current debt obligation is the 2005 SRF loan for $2.75 million, which total annual debt service is $136,000, and that'll be paid off in 2030. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are the cash flow scenarios. So as the scenario 1, the 100% loan for the 100% loan, sorry, the recommended rate increases are 14% for the first 3 years, with followed by 4% rate increases. For scenario 2, the 90% grant and 10% loan, the recommended rate increases are 4% annual rate increases. And this 4% is actually in line with covering your operating cost inflation. And with the grant, scenario 300% grant, the proposed rate increases are 3% annual rate increases. And these other boxes are big, show that these proposed rate increases will meet our financial goals of meeting the debt service coverage. We'll also meet our fund reserve targets, and we're also maintaining positive net operating revenues. Okay, so once we went through the cash flow scenarios, now we're going to talk about the fixed versus variable rate recovery options. So currently, about 74% of your revenues are collected from the fixed charges, and 26% are collected from the variable or the consumption charges. So we're looking at two options, a 70% fixed and 30% variable, and a 50% fixed and a 50% variable. So the pros of this 70% fixed and 30% variable is it's in line with what you currently have. This also provides greater revenue stability, meaning the higher fixed charges, the less volatility, especially during drought. And also the majority of your expenses are fixed. So it ideally you'd like to cover all your fixed expenses with the fixed charges and all your variable expenses with the variable or consumption charges. The cons are that customers, especially low water users, you have less control over your bills because your fixed charge will be higher. So for the 50% fixed versus 50% variable, the pros is that it gives customers more control over your bills, meaning if you use less water, then your bill will be less. The cons are that revenues, they can vary, especially during times of drought. So when people use less water, your revenues are can take a big hit. So in all, there's 6 rate options. Again, the scenario 1, that's based on the cash flow percentages. That's the 14% with the 2 4%. And within that, we've looked at the 70 versus 30 and 50 and 50. And we did the same with the 2 other scenarios. So I know I just want to point out, so these are the proposed water rates for scenario 1A with the 100% loan. So your base rate is $49.48. So if we adopted the 14% rate increases for the first 3 years and 4% for the next 2 years, and we stuck with the 70% and 30% split, the base rate would go to about $49.63, and the consumption rate would go to $3.69, which is currently which is close to what you currently have. So if we adopted the scenario 1B, which is the 100% loan, but one with the 50% fixed and 50% variable, you'll see that this base rate, which is currently $49.48, decreases to $35.45. However, your consumption charge, which is currently $3.23, would increase to $6.14. So this shows what the effect would be on changing the fixed versus variable ratio. And again, these are the rates for the scenario 2, the 90% grant and 10% loan. These rates are lower because our proposed rates are lower. But as you'll see with the scenario 2A, the 70-30, the base rate will be about $45.30. Consumption rate is $3.36. But with the fixed variable, the 50% fixed and 50% variable, this base rate will go down. The fixed charge will go down to $32.35, but the consumption rate goes up to $5.61. This is scenario 3, 3% rate increases. Same again, I just wanted to point out that the base rate for the 50% fixed, 50% variable goes down. However, the consumption rate increases. So I know that those rates kind of don't mean anything until we see what the impact is. So here is a chart that compares the monthly water bill for a typical residential customer. A typical customer for Rio Dell only uses about 500 cubic feet of water a month, which is really, really low compared to, I live in the Bay Area, the average use is 15 or 100 cubic feet. So the current monthly bill is $65.63. The blues show scenario 1, which is the 100% loan. Those would be the highest bills because that's the 100% loan option. The green is scenario 2A, which is 90% grant and 10% loan. That's the 4% rate increases. And the oranges are the scenario 3A, which is the 100% grant. That's 3% rate increases. As you see for scenarios 2A and 3, the proposed rates, this is the proposed rates for as of July 1st, 2022, would all be lower than the current monthly bill. And we have a bill impacts for a range of different customers. We included a packet that we provided to staff. So we have the commercial, bill impacts. We have different residential uses also. And I did want to point out that usage does vary throughout the year. So customers will experience a range of impacts. In the summer, we typically use more water. So the impacts for a customer will vary throughout the year. So this is a monthly water bill survey for that typical customer that uses the 500 cubic feet. This compares the current rate with the proposed rates with some surrounding agencies. Currently, this Rio Dell is in the middle right here at $65.63. And these are the proposed July 1st, 22 bills based on the different scenarios. And also want to point out that these other agencies will also most likely be increasing their rates also. So the city currently doesn't have a water low income discount, but if the city council chooses to, you can implement one. You just have to use any revenue outside of water rates, because a water rate cannot subsidize a discount. So we're proposing to use the late fee revenue, which is about $25,000. And based on the PG&E Care program, there's about 700 customers. About half your accounts would qualify for a discount. So what we did was we just calculated a simple discount. The annual discount per customer is $25,000 divided by 700 is $35.71. Divided by 12, monthly discount would be about $3. So based on that average bill, the discount would be about 4.5%. And we don't have to calculate a discount this way. It could be a percentage, it could be a straight dollar amount, but this was just a simple calculation to just show one way of how a low income discount could be implemented. And we are recommending that if the city does implement a discount, that they use the PG&E Care program as a way for staff. It's a simple way for staff to I guess, approve or eligibility for customers. So if a customer is on the PG&E Care program, they could just come in and show, their bill, and then it would be easy for staff to validate or confirm that that customer qualifies for the discount. Okay, so that summarizes my water rate overview. Do you have any questions, or did you want to go into sewer? Because I'll kind of just go through the same for sewer.
Let me just reach out to council members. Are you needing questions now, or can you continue?
I know it's a lot.
Mayor Garnes, if I might,
Yes.
Catherine, the 600% increase on chemicals seems pretty wild.
Yeah.
What's the background on that?
It might be better for Randy, if Randy's still on the line, to chime in on that.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Gordon. So I spoke with our chemical suppliers, and due to the current system, that the way things are working, a lot of the components for the chemicals that they use to make the chlorine and whatnot is getting hard to get it here to the U.S. And so with that, the cost of the chemicals as far as making it, cost of energy, cost of trucking, and just basically getting it to our facility is going to increase our cost. He ran a few scenarios with me, and basically he said it could go up to 600%. That'd be the high point. But at this current time, it's a little bit of an unknown due to the fact that the employment market with people working, not working, and the availability of getting these chemicals and these components to the facilities to be able to actually make this stuff is becoming a problem. There's actually a shortage of chlorine, and due to that, we're a municipality and whatnot that we can actually be higher on the tier of the list versus on the bottom of the list. And this also goes with the polymer that we use for the water plant for taking the suspended solids and dirt out of the water while the river's dirty. Those chemicals are also getting harder to get to our area. Currently, our supplier, they're making it on the East Coast now because they shut down the West Coast manufacturer due to the employment and as far as getting the chemical components to those facilities.
Thank you very much for the for that reasoning. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome.
That it, Mayor Pro Tem, for the moment?
That's it, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter?
No questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson? Frank, if you're speaking, you're on mute. And I can't tell, so.
Okay, I think I'm back off mute. I keep,
Okay, there you are. There you are.
I keep getting dropped off. I have poor reception over here. The bandwidth when you do a PowerPoint pulls away really hard. Are we just doing water now? Or are we going to come back to sewer later?
We're just doing water. We're asking questions in the middle
Okay,
for
I
water.
guess the question along with Gordon's was dollar wise, what are we talking about when we increase the chemical supplies? Is it like, $100, $500,000? What kind of money are we looking at the 600% increase?
I have that. I could pull that up. It is. So currently chemicals is for the budget this year, 21-22 is 18,300 with a 600% increase that was projected to go up $120,000 to $128,000.
Okay. And then the other question on, I don't know if it fits here, but with the, we incur a lot of administrative costs. So when anything changes there, particularly like with wages and benefits, that flows back into the water rates and the sewer rates. So how much effect does that administrative cost?
So for salaries and benefits, we've escalated at 5% each year, starting in 2022-23. And that's typical. We've actually seen for other agencies, we've actually escalated that higher to account for, retirement benefits and such. But 5% seems to be reasonable based on the past increases in salaries and benefits.
I'm not sure that's exactly my question.
Oh.
Do you break apart that there's a cost to operate the water and sewer plant? We're on water, so we'll end up doing it. Same thing would probably apply to sewer, but it costs a certain amount to operate the operation, and then we incur amount that if I remember correctly is about equal to that comes from administrative costs, i.e. finance department, city management department. That flows into the system as well. So does that increase proportionally?
Do you mean overhead costs? Are you referring to like overhead?
No, I'm referring to overhead would be like benefits and type thing. I'm referring to more administrative costs that it takes to run other parts of our city government are funded by the water and sewer departments.
I would have.
Is that taken into account in your calculations?
I would have to defer to Kyle for that. We have the way our expenses are broken out. It doesn't specifically say. It shows like salaries and benefits, professional services. I apologize. I have to defer to Kyle or get back to you on that because I don't have the detail on the specific line items for each expense category.
Yeah, we don't have, actually I'm unmuted. It's not broken out in that manner to have, say, operators separated from the finance team or administration or anything like that. No, that's not in this PowerPoint.
Yeah, well, we used to see that kind of a figure. I don't know. You understand my question, don't you, Kyle?
I believe, yeah. So the 5% would apply whether it's administration or the operators as well. If that answers your question.
Well, yeah, it does. And the other stuff I'll have is probably on sewer, so I'll leave this alone.
Thank you, Frank. And so I think I just won the FEMA, grant that will be funded by FEMA. Is that because it's not because of an emergency, it's because it's seismic retrofit, and that's just the agency that would fund that type of fix. That FEMA's the one who would supply that grant because it's a retrofit, a seismic retrofit. Is that why FEMA?
Yes. Hazard mitigation grant funding is a federal program. Okay. And so when there are a series of disasters, by law, the federal government has to set aside a certain amount to do a disaster mitigation, pre-disaster mitigation, essentially. So as everybody is all too aware, there have been a number of disasters in California and really across the nation. So there's a pretty large allocation for hazard mitigation projects. Some of the ones that are most commonly funded are water line crossings and that sort of thing. I think up in McKinleyville was an example of a project that was recently funded through hazard mitigation grant funding. So that funding does come down directly from the federal government. We did submit the application to Cal OES, but then Cal OES just forwards it on to FEMA. And so that's where it's at right now. And our understanding is that it's a very good sign when Cal OES forwards it off to FEMA in terms of getting an award. However, we are not currently, just to add a little bit more complication to it, we're not currently obligated to perform the project. So we're still very early in the process.
Okay, thank you. And when I know we're not looking for an answer from council tonight, you're not asking us a question, you're giving us a presentation, but I just like the likelihood when we look at the different financing options, the 70-30, 50-50 kind of situation, is that when we get to that point, is that something that we would factor in the likelihood of a 218 passing? Because when you look at the number, we're going to have to show these same numbers, right? Just like we're showing them now as we go through that process. And it's right now that it's a really touchy subject in Rio Dell water and water rates. And so I just, thought I'd just bring that up, that is something that we would really have to look closely at, because it's not going to be an easy thing to pass for sure.
Next is Chris.
And that was actually not a question, that was a statement. So are there any hands raised or emails regarding the water side?
There are no emails.
Okay. And I am seeing no hands raised, so I have to go with there are no hands raised. So now we will then move on to sewer rates, and that's page.
Okay.
Pages that are on our packets. Well, we'll just go on to the sewer rates.
Okay.
Page 60 in our packets.
There's
Thank you, Catherine.
sewer
Thank
rates.
you. You're awesome.
I understand. And sewer rates is a little simpler. There's a few, there's only 4 scenarios, but I'm going to kind of go through the same thing. But yes, and I'll take questions if you have any questions on any sides, please interrupt me. Okay. So here are your historical and current sewer rates since 2013. You have that fixed monthly charge per EDU. Currently, it's $52.78. And as you see, your sewer rates have increased by the change in the CPI, so about 2% each year. So in addition to that fixed monthly charge, you have that volume rate, which is based on consumption. And that volume rate is based on your 3-month average winter water use. So that's your water use during December, January, and February. And for single family, multifamily residential customers, your consumption is capped at 1,500 cubic feet per month. So that means if you use more than 1,500 cubic feet, your volume rate for the whole year will be that 1,500 cubic feet per month. And you have 4 customer classes for the volume rate. You have low strength, which includes car washes, office, like a retail store, and a laundromat. Domestic strength, which is residential, also hotels, schools, motels, churches, gas station, bars without dining. Medium strength includes beauty shops, medical office, and dental offices. And high strengths are restaurants and bakeries and markets with food prep. So the volume rates range from $3.66 for low strength customers and goes up to $8.01 for high strength customers. So that fixed charge, the fixed charge means that all customers are charged same fixed charge per EDU. So this is your minimum charge for all customers. So if you don't use any water, you're still charged that minimum charge. And the fixed charge currently generates about 71% of your total sewer service revenues. So the volume rate varies based on your customer strength and is based on your average consumption during the winter months, December through February. And residential customers are domestic strength, and your use is capped at 1,500 cubic feet per month. And currently, these volume rates generate about 30% of your total sewer service revenues. So for your sewer system overview, the whole sewer system consists of a network of collection pipes, manholes, clean outs, and pumps that convey the wastewater to the treatment plant. In 2013, the city completed a major plant upgrade that replaced the old plant with a new activated sludge process to address nutrient removal. In terms of the number of accounts and flow by customer class, you have about 1,500 total EDUs or total customers, with the majority being domestic strength. And you see the total flow, the majority is domestic flow. It accounts for about 99% of all flow. So here are your sewer reserve funds. Currently, your reserve target, you're meeting your reserve targets. But the operating reserve, same as water, we're 30% of annual operating expenses. Your debt service reserve equals to 1 year's debt service payments, and your capital reserve, we're proposing that $1 million to fund emergency repairs on the cash basis.
Hey, Catherine, can I interrupt you just really quickly, just as a housekeeping item? Can the operator make sure that anybody who's out who left the room is allowed back in? I don't have that ability to do that on this. So hopefully the operator can hear me, Rosa, and just make sure that anybody trying to get into the meeting right now can get in. All right, thank you, sorry.
Oh, no worries, okay. Okay, here's an overview of the sewer fund's net revenues or financial standing for the past 3 years, including the budget for 21-22. As you'll see down here, in 2018-19 and 2019-20, the sewer fund actually was operating in a deficit. And for this current year, it's projected that there'll be about 195,000 in the red, which means that this gets taken out from your reserves. And you're not covering, it means that sewer rates are not covering your operating expenses. So here's the sewer CIP. it's much less than the water CIP. Over the 5-year rate study period, total projects are projected at about $525,000. So the projects that are that the city is applying for grants for are not included in our study because those will be grant funded and will not be paid from sewer rates. So these are our sewer cash flow assumptions. They're similar to the water. For the, we included a low income discount. We have minimal growth, 0.5% each year. Salaries and benefits are increased by 5%. Chemicals are increased by $600,000, and I'll give you the actual dollar amount after the presentation. And all our expenses about 3% each year. So on average, your operating expenses increase about 4% each year. And the only current sewer debt obligation is a loan from the California DWR for about $7 million. Total debt service is about $303,000 each year, and it will continue on till 2043-44. So here are our sewer cash flow scenarios. So our scenario 1 is inflationary rate increases, and that's 4% rate increases to cover your operating cost inflation. Scenario 2 is to meet these 3 financial goals by the end of the rate period, which is in 26-27. Because currently the sewer fund is not meeting your debt service coverage. You'll see here the projected debt service coverage this year is 0.89, and your ratio requirement is 1.20. So with these proposed 9% increases, we project that the sewer fund will meet that debt service coverage by 2025-26. The second goal of meeting the sewer reserve fund targets. Currently, you are meeting the targets, but without rate increases, or even just with the 4% rate increases, the sewer fund is projected to not meet it does not meet those reserve fund targets starting in 2023-24. So with the 9% rate increases, we're showing that we'll meet those targets by 26-27. And the third goal, to maintain the positive net revenues, we're currently not meeting that target. Same with the 4% rate increases, we're projected to maintain operating in a deficit. But with the 9% rate increases, we're showing that the sewer fund will be in the black in 2025-26. So here are our rate recovery options at fixed versus variable split. Currently, you're about 70% fixed, 30% variable. So our first option is to maintain that split. And then we're also going to look at that 50% fixed, 50% variable option to give customer more control over their monthly bills. So here are sewer rate options. The scenario 1 with the 4% rate increases, with the 2 rate options, and then this scenario 2, the 9% rate options with the 9% rate increases with the 2 rate options of the 70-30 and 50-50. So here with scenario 1, the inflationary rate increases currently, your fixed monthly charge is $52.78. The proposed fixed charge for next year is $52.24. That goes down slightly because we, when we recalculated the rates, we updated the number of accounts and water use, and it goes down slight. And then the volume rate for domestic strength, currently $4.58, would go to $5.03. So as a comparison, if we did the 50% fixed, 50% variable, that fixed monthly charge would go down to $37.31. But your volume rate would increase. So for the low strength, it would go from $3.66 to $6.67. Same with domestic strength, it would go from $4.58 to $8.31. And that's with the 4% rate increases. So with the 9% rate increases, the projected rates would fixed charge would increase to $54.73, and for domestic strength, the volume rate would go to $5.24. With the 50% fixed, 50% variable, the fixed monthly charge would go down to $39.09. But for the domestic strength, the residential customers, that volume rate would increase to $8.70. So in terms of impact to the typical residential customer that uses 500 cubic feet, the current monthly bill is $75.68. So the purple is the scenario 1A, the 4% rate increases, and the yellow or orangey color is the 9% rate increases. So here's a monthly bill survey. Currently, Rio Dell is on the higher end and will remain on the higher end with the proposed rate increases. But again, these other agencies will likely increase their rates in the future because all agencies are experiencing the same, capital needs and operating costs as the city is. And here is the sewer low income discount. We did the same calculation as we did for water, but the overall discount would be about 4% if we did that straight dollar. It would be about $3 discount based on the 700 customers that are eligible. So your average sewer bill is about $75.68. With the discount, it would be about $72.70, and that's about a 4% discount. So with the water discount, it would be about an 8% overall, 8 to 9% overall discount on the total utility bill. Okay, that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for sitting through this. I know it's not the most exciting topics, but I appreciate you guys listening, and I'm open to taking any questions.
All right, well, thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you really for you having to go through this and doing all that talking. Could not have been easy. We really appreciate you actually being here. It's appreciated. I just wonder if can you do, the fixed versus variable? Can you do one scenario with sewer and one scenario with water, or is it just across the board? It's 70-30 or 50-50 across the board?
No, you can, water and sewer, they're two different, two separate entities. Right. So yeah, so they could be completely separate. Yeah. Oh. We just picked these percentages because, that's what you currently have is that 70-30, and then 50-50 just seemed like a middle ground. I mean, you could really, city can decide really whatever percentage they want. We just, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall?
Not right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
Yeah, it seemed pretty straightforward from the water, so most of those questions kind of answer themselves. But one of my questions is and I don't know if this is something that the council would take up separately or if we do it in this rate study, but when we talk about setting the sewer rate usage based on the 5 units that the average person uses, and then we average that from December, January, and February. My problem is when there's a new user signs up for for usage, they pay this minimum charge. The way the ordinance is written, it says you have to establish a 3-month average, which is those 3 months. However, if you sign up, depending when you sign up, you pay that average rate for either 9 to 18 months until it can take effect and actually go into their using their 3-month average. If you sign up at the beginning of March, you go all the way till July, which you haven't established a 3-month average because it hasn't been November, January, February, or if you so that time you roll around through that and bring back around to July 1st again, it's about 18 months. And the other one, the shorter one, is if you do it in November, you go till through those 3 months and then to August. So it's 9 months rather than just somewhere fixing a 3-month average. And so that's something I would like to see change somehow so that the new user gets onto his 3-month average sooner than later. I don't know who needs to respond to that.
So you're saying you'd like that average to be maybe like a November, December, January?
I don't care what 3 months it is. It can be December, January, February. It just needs to set a 3-month average. Once they can establish that they have been using for 3 months, that average will be what comes into effect. I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but what I'm saying is when a new person sets up for the bill, they will pay the fixed average rate of 5 units, either from a minimum of 9 months to a maximum of about 18 months.
Okay, so we want to look at a way to establish that average sooner so that they'll actually be paying based on their usage.
Like on their actual usage,
Yes.
not on the person's before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not based on an average. Yeah, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Is that, Frank, do you, I'm sorry, are you waiting for a different answer or do you have another question?
We can look into that.
Councilmember Wilson, you there? Oh, he might have dropped off.
Oh, okay.
Where am I?
Yeah, I think I understand his
Mayor-
question. Yeah, we can look into.
Okay,
We
we'll
can
get back on and we'll bring him up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem, oh, there he is.
yeah, I dropped in and out again. So was there an answer to that question? I left in the middle of my question.
Oh, no, I believe you're asking if there's a way that we can establish that average sooner so that the new user will be paying based on their actual use. Yeah,
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, we could look into that.
Great. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. I just want to maybe amplify on what the mayor said earlier, and that is that if we have a rate increase and it triggers a 218 measure, the 218 process, especially for water the last time around, half a dozen years ago or so, was pretty polarizing and divisive for our community, and not a whole lot of fun for anybody on either side of the issue. If we get into a 218 process this year, the council needs to be the strongest advocates in the world for the fairness of the proposed rates, and we need to be selling that to our neighbors, the people that are going to vote on it. And we need to do a really, really good, convincing, fact-filled job. That's all I have to say, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I completely agree with you. Are there any hands raised or emails?
There are no emails.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised?
We can't hear you,
Well,
Rosa.
I'm not. Well, I must assume that there aren't any hands raised, otherwise she would be saying so.
I'm
So,
sorry.
it's kind of awkward, but
There are no hands.
I have to, I haven't heard Rosa respond, so I'm assuming that there are no hands raised. So
Can you hear me now?
I want to thank, I'm sorry, I can hear you.
Sorry, technical difficulties. There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think this was informational, correct, City Manager? So I just want to thank you, Catherine, again for being here, especially, you're not feeling well and you stuck it out and you really did a great job at your presentation. It made things a lot clearer, and we really appreciate your efforts.
Okay, and if any other questions come up, please let Kyle or me know, and we'll be back to present our, I guess, preliminary recommendations at a future council date. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Happy New Year. Get better.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Kyle. So now we'll bring that presentation to a close and move on to discussion on city social media and draft social media policy. Page 77 in our packets.
Thank you, Mayor Barnes and members of the council. As the council's aware, in the latter quarter of 2021, we started discussing social media presences for the city and the need to develop a social media policy to cover this particular subject. So I'm really excited to turn this over to Travis Sanborn, our management analyst, and he will first introduce himself to the council. This will be his first agenda item, and then go over and review the attached social media policy. Thank you.
Thank you, City
Travis.
Manager. Hi, good evening, Mayor Garnes and City Council members. It's a pleasure to speak with you all tonight. It's been a great onboarding process here at the city, and I'm really excited to see what we can get done over 2022. I'm excited to provide an update on the city's social media policy. On December 7th, 2021, the City Council discussed the need for a social media presence. And after that meeting, staff began to develop a social media policy so that the city could establish a social media presence. Taking into account the complexities of social media use by government agencies, staff developed a policy based upon best practices of some of our local government neighbors and League of California city partners. The policy will be vetted by the city attorney to ensure that it adheres to the law. The City of Rio Dell's use of social media will enhance our communication and foster engagement with the public by giving citizens an alternative way to get their voices heard and get information distributed. Social media use is meant to advance the goals of the city in efficient operations, inclusion, and transparency. The policy is meant to be utilized in a consistent manner across all departments in advancement of the city's vision. The staff is looking for the City Council to review the social media policy and provide direction. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Travis. I'll open it up for questions. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Travis, I want to thank you and staff for working on this. I know that this happened pretty quickly. So I read through it. I like it. I am happy that you wrote in there that you have to use proper grammar, and I appreciated that.
Absolutely.
So that's important to me. I do have a question. It is not about the actual document. It just relates to social media. So I'm just going to throw it out there now. One of the things we brought up was doing potentially a visit Rio Dell page, more of a promotional thing, less affiliated with the actual city government. So I just wanted to bring that back up and ask where we stood on that. I guess that's a Kyle question.
So
Yeah.
Or either one.
And I'll just jump in there. One of the things that we can do is work with the Chamber of Commerce. They generally do a lot of the promotional items in the community, and have the Chamber operate social media, perhaps in conjunction with the city, and have them also identify volunteers to to operate the social media policy, or excuse me, to operate a promotional page, something similar to Visit Rio Dell design. But we have not currently approached the chamber regarding that.
Cool. So there are meetings this Friday. I'm the liaison, so I'm just gonna go, if that's okay with everybody here, and maybe try to bring this up at their meeting unless somebody tells me not to. Second question is, would we need a different policy like this for something like that?
So because the chamber is a separate organization, the city would not be involved
Okay.
in that.
Okay.
So it streamlines it, simply because a government agency, as you know, has a lot of restrictions and developing court cases in terms of social media. Whereas the Chamber of Commerce is really an advocacy and organizational group for businesses in the community, and so they have a wider array of discretion in terms of exercising and censoring speech. So they probably would be. It would be probably a lot simpler of a process for them to operate it.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson.
I think it's a good policy to move ahead with the social media just because of the times we're in. I'm not a big fan of using social media. I use it because it's there and you can't avoid it. It'll be interesting how we work this out to get some kind of administrators that filter out people are going to get on here, like with this water issue and sewer issue. That'll be a real big, everybody venting and going crazy in the midst of a situation that if you don't take care of it, you're going to flush your toilet and it ain't going to work. So you might want to give that some serious thought. But people don't do that on social media. We watch the local ones, that there's a Rio Dell Unplugged and Rio Dell Neighborhood Watch, and there's another one out now, Rio Dell something. And but you're gonna see this filter into the city, and I guess the city will, by way of staff or however they do it, will work that out. And I have confidence that they will. So I think it's something we need to move ahead with, and I appreciate the effort by staff and council that have moved this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall.
Okay. I was surprised. This was much more complicated than I was imagining. And I was surprised at how much oversight would needed to be done to keep us from possible legal action. So it was a good to read this, and I would think we would need to pass it. I was wondering if we did have social media, would we link it to our city website? Would it be linked somehow?
Yeah, so I think some of the best practices that we have seen typically is linking information, for example, on Facebook directly back to the city website as an example. So most of what we would be doing is kind of either linking from a Twitter to a Facebook, or linking from the website itself, and then making those posts on Facebook.
And I'm glad that Amanda's going to try to work with the chamber, because I think that's a good idea and it'll be beneficial to us both. Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, of course.
And that's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Woodall. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. The few questions I had, I discussed with Travis this morning, and my overriding concern is that that the benefits need to greatly outweigh the risks. And I'm not a user at all of social media. don't know that I've ever really looked at half a dozen Facebook things in my life. So I'm probably not the best judge of what's good or bad. But that said, that's it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think I had a question. Who's going to monitor it? Who responds? And are responses required? Those are my 3 questions.
Those are good questions. So right now, we are not at the implementation phase of an actual social media process. This is helping to create the guidelines for how we would implement such a process. So right now in the city, the PIO for the city is the city manager. However, what the social media policy is stating is that there would be an ability to delegate that out to various staff members who then would be in charge of that particular presence. So we do have some, I guess you would call it ghost pages up where they're not, active in any way. And we are also looking into the possibility also of utilizing Nextdoor, which is another social media company that has a little bit more in tune with neighborhood communities. They're a little bit more geared towards that, have a little bit more protections regarding anonymity and whatnot. So right now we're just focusing in on the policy. The implementation is yet to be forthcoming.
Thank you. I am kind of on the, I've been on social media, but it's not my thing. I'm not at all attached to social media other than, just what's somehow I got attached. I didn't attach myself. So, but I think that it's important. I think that it will benefit the city and it will help us raise our people's awareness of Rio Dell and, the positives of Rio Dell, because I think that's one of the things that's really important for us in what we're trying to do currently, just as we are, is just trying to get out that positive image that we have really tried to cultivate. And then I think that social media would be a good way to do that. So I fully support it. I appreciate all the work staff's done. Thank you, Travis, for putting this together and for making the presentation. Thank you, Amanda, for, really spearheading the push. And I'm just all in. Is there anything that you need, City Manager, from the council?
I don't think so. I think what we will plan on doing is submitting this to the city attorney for review and comment, making any changes that the city attorney recommends, and then submitting it as early as the 18th on the consent calendar for adoption.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised or emails regarding this topic?
No hands raised.
And no emails. I have one more, Kyle. I want to make sure that I have the blessing of everybody here to go to the chamber meeting on Friday and pitch a chamber promotional social media page.
I think I'm good with it. Everybody just thumbs up.
Want to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Then we will bring that discussion to a close and move on to the request for proposal for the use of city-owned property to develop, construct, and maintain digital or non-digital billboards. City Manager.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. You may recall that in our economic development plan and the immediate action plan, the that plan calls for the development of signage on the freeway to help both advertise the community and help pull people off the freeway for services provided in the community. Currently, there is no billboard signage other than the the Caltrans road signage. We do know that back in 1964 that there was such signage out at the Metropolitan site. However, after the flood, it's not clear when, but after the flood, that signage was removed and never replaced. Again, Travis has been working on developing an RFP. This is really kind of an informational search for proposals for what to do with these sites. As the council is aware, the city recently just cleaned up or finished the annexation of the wastewater disposal field. So that area is now officially inside the city limits of the city of Rio Dell, including the permitting in conjunction with Caltrans on this particular subject. So we're really looking to issue the RFP to gather more information about what is possible, what some of the proposals are. So this is meant to be pretty open-ended. One of the concepts thrown out there is space for approximately 3 billboards. One could be dedicated to the city, and, advertising the services in the community, gas, lunch, whatnot. And then the other 2 would be for the vendor to, rotate through their system, typical billboard advertisements. The idea being that the city would not have to put forward any money to construct billboards or anything like that or manage them. So that's just one concept, but there's obviously a lot of different technologies, including electronic billboards. But we do have, again, Travis, who has been working on this with staff and is ready to give a short presentation on this particular subject. I would just remind the council, if you need additional time, to just recommend that it be continued to the next meeting. It's really no rush on this particular item. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Travis. And I'm sorry if I said some of the things in the presentation.
No problem. Thank you, City Manager. And thank you, Mayor Garnes and the City Council members for all your input. So as the City Manager discussed, when discussing goals and actions to achieve economic development, one of the goal directives was to increase the number of out-of-town visitors. An action item was listed to invest in additional highway billboard signage on the wastewater property on Metropolitan. As part of the city's plan to attain fiscal sustainability, the city is exploring allowing a private firm to develop, construct, operate, and maintain outdoor advertising billboards on city-owned property as a method to generate revenue. Moreover, updating the city's signage will help to modernize the city's image, promote the community events, and add value to the city's real-owned property, while stimulating economic investment and attracting support for our local business community. Our primary objective with this RFP is to seek proposals from qualified applicants to develop, construct, operate, and maintain up to those 3 signs on the wastewater property on Metropolitan at no cost to the city. So staff is recommending the approval of this RFP for the use of the city-owned real property to develop, construct, operate, and maintain those message board billboard signs. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I will open it up. Councilmember Woodall.
Oh, okay. First, I'm glad that the signs will be for city-sponsored events and things related to the city. I like that idea. And my only other question is, I guess having 3 signs right in a row like that kind of bothers me. I don't know about anyone else, but it's such a beautiful view. as you're driving in and going up across the river, I would like to see the sign limited not to 3, because I just think it wouldn't, I don't know, bother me. My other question is, are we going to have any control over the looks of the billboards? Or once they decide, will we be able to have input? I mean, I would like it to have a country feel, or, you know, to fit into the area that we are. And I wouldn't like to see an electrical sign there. I think it would be distracting, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Woodall. Where am I? Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. I'm curiously wondering if there's really how much need there is out there for more signs. Have we tested the water at all to see if there's any interest?
So essentially, the RFP would be the official testing of the waters.
The second is a comment stemming back from 30 years of employment with Caltrans, and they have specific requirements for how close signs can be placed, especially when, you know, you got a lot of words or a lot of text in the signs. And so, you know, a car going 65 miles an hour, people can only read so many words in so many seconds and, you know, process it. And those Caltrans guidelines would be strong guidelines to adhere with as far as placement of the signs. So that's just a general comment. And that's all I have, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, it's as I think it's, as the city manager mentioned, the RFP will give it a chance to test the waters to see how much interest there is. I agree with Julie that I don't know that 3 in that short distance is really the best picture. But I think we ought to move ahead with at least with the request for proposal, and then we can fine tune it from there. So have at it.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. I think we should move ahead with the request for proposals. On page 92 of our packet, page 4 of this document, I think, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. It's talking about the parcel, and the responsible department for the parcel is Public Works and Wastewater. And that's what it is, and not responsible for the sign, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then just kind of to go off of what Julie said, my biggest concern with the electronic signs especially is sometimes they are so bright, and that is a dark section of highway, and can blind you. There was an Amber Alert sign there for a while that was so bright, and I just remember thinking, God, this is a hazard. But that's just more along the lines of like, would we have any say over this? And we don't know that yet, and that's fine. So that's just a comment, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Carter. And I am actually in agreement with, I think, everyone who's spoken as far as the number of signs. I absolutely see no reason for more than 2 signs spaced, you know, at one end and then the other end. 3 signs does seem to be overkill in that short space. You know, and sometimes when I'm driving down the road and I see the amber sign and it's got all these words and about getting ticketed while texting, and like I'm reading a novel. You're asking me to read a novel and you're going to ticket me because I'm looking somewhere else, you know? So I think that there should be no more, in my opinion, no more than 2. And the only reason I get to 2 is because I do really like the idea of promoting Rio Dell, but I also see the benefit and the revenue of having a private company lease the signs. So that's how I got to 2. Otherwise I would have just been at one, but I like both of those ideas. So I would I wouldn't vote for 3 if it came down to voting for a number. I'm telling you now, I wouldn't vote for 3, but I would vote for 2. So does well, first I'll ask if there are any hands raised or emails.
No hands raised.
There are no emails.
Okay, thank you. And so city manager, or I'll ask council, is there anyone who wants to hold on to this thought for a minute, or are we good with saying, go ahead with the RFP? I will ask for, is there a vote here? Let me see. What page am I on? Yes. So we need to have a motion to approve the request for RFP for the use of the city-owned property to develop, construct, and maintain digital or non-digital message board signs / billboards. Is there a motion?
I so move, Woodall.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Carter.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Woodall,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Abstain.
Mayor Garnes.
Yes. Motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. Is that properly stated?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move to our final agenda item, adopt resolution 1519-2022, declaring the need for continued virtual meetings in accordance with AB 361 for another 30 days, or discontinuing virtual meetings and resuming in-person / virtual hybrid meetings. Is that city manager? No, that's city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. So as the council is aware, staff is required to bring this item back to the council every 30 days for consideration to either continue holding meetings virtually or to resume with in-person hybrid meetings. So as noted in the staff report, there were 178 new COVID cases reported in Humboldt County for the period of December 22nd through 27th. However, the latest report shows that from December 29th to January 3rd, there were 400 new cases, including 1 death and 1 hospitalization. The Delta variant is still the dominant variant in Humboldt County, although there have been 2 positive Omicron variant cases now reported in the county. So as such, the Humboldt County Health Department is monitoring closely this week to determine if increasing cases locally are due to the Omicron, Delta, or possibly both. So with the adoption of version 1 of the resolution, the council will continue to conduct meetings remotely, and staff will bring the item back at the February 1st meeting for further consideration. And with adoption of version 2, the meetings will resume in person, beginning either with the next regular meeting on January 18th or perhaps the February 1st meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor for questions.
Thank you, City Clerk. And I will open it up. I'll just go ahead and say right now that I would be voting for virtual meetings. As long as we're forced to wear masks, I'm going to be voting for virtual. So I was just putting my position out there. And now I'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. During our previous closed session, twice during that approximately 1-hour meeting, I was cut off from the meeting, not through anything that I did, but just through the use of computers. And, that wouldn't happen if we were having an in-place meeting. And it's over the top frustrating for me to, be kicked out and have to go back through the process of signing in and getting allowed back into a meeting room. I just like to be done with Zoom. And for that reason, I will vote for in-person meetings. Thank you, Mayor Garnes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. I am very torn on this. Every time we vote on it, I'm very torn. I'd love to be back in person. I am leaning more heavily towards voting to stay virtual for now in light of the reports and the craziness. But with that being said, I would also be fine to go back to in person if the vote goes that way. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall.
Okay, Eureka is back in in-person meetings, and HTA is going to the hybrid. Arcade I called today, and they're doing the hybrid meetings, which is working well. But the one thing that they're doing that I like with the hybrid meetings is there's no the public has to attend by Zoom. So there's no public allowed into the meeting room. And so then I was talking to the lady and she said, most of the time when I watch them, there are 3 of the council members there. And I thought if we could go to a hybrid meeting and also close the meeting room to public, that would be a step toward getting back to normal. But it would also allow you to also attend, to it be virtual, you know what I mean. And I know Frank is usually concerned about it. And it would be a step toward it, and that we could all sort of have something we need. And I would recommend going toward the hybrid meeting. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, I too hate this getting kicked off thing. I don't know how many times tonight I lost track after 5, but I also know that what the numbers come in with 400 over the weekend, there was 188 tonight. I watched the people go out at work. Another one of our main employees that we work with, he's out for 10 days. And so when you're in a confined area, such as the city hall, compared to like being at work where it's an open air building, I guess you want to call it. So you're not in that confined area for several hours. I'm not a doctor. I'm not terribly convinced that masks are the answer. The social distancing and being open air and not being confined for long periods of time. I'm along the lines of until I can come to the meetings without a mask and meet it like we started to do until this variant kicked in here. But I still don't think we're ready to come back to in the meetings in person. I think we still need to stay with the virtual until we either get a handle on it and get this thing dropped down. It's going the wrong direction for me. It's the numbers we're seeing are beyond anything we've seen so far. So yeah, I guess you got to get where I'm going to vote. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised or emails?
I see no emails.
Deborah?
Yes. Yes, Julie.
I'd like to make a motion that we go to the hybrid in-person meetings, because I feel, like I said, that would handle your concerns. It would also handle Frank's concerns. And in that, I would like to make sure that the public would have to attend on Zoom. I'll make that a motion.
I will second.
Can I ask a question? I think then we can go to discussion. So what you're saying is some council members could be in chambers and some council members couldn't be in chambers, and then no public can be in chambers. I mean, I need a literal explanation of what you're saying. Like, okay, all of staff and council are in chambers, because Eureka, for example, there's there's a mile between the city council of Eureka and the audience, the public. I mean, there is so much space in between the council and the public in Eureka. You could put Rio Dell City Hall in between. So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah.
And
So
in Arcata, there isn't, so they don't allow the public in, but the public can attend through Zoom, as
Right.
they're doing now. And so that's the question. And then with Arcata, she was saying yes, some of the staff attend through Zoom, and some evidently some of the members do through Zoom, but there are staff that attends, and it's a way of getting back halfway. We did that at Humboldt Transit Authority, and it worked very well. Around the table, you know, some of the staff was there and some of the members were there. The attorney was there, but some of the members chose to attend through Zoom, and it worked well. I mean, it worked really well, and I don't see why we couldn't do something like that. It gives us a step. It gives you your rights and how you feel, and it also gives Frank his, and it's a step toward getting back to normal, and that's why.
thank you very
I'm
much
done.
for that explanation. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Wait, I already did the hands raised email thing, didn't I?
Oh, yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Carter.
Oh my
Well, and
goodness.
is this a yes or no?
Yes or no?
So before you vote, Amanda, let's just be clear on what yes means and what no means.
We're voting yes
Yes means,
hybrid.
and no means stay as
And
we are.
no means we all stay on Zoom.
Okay,
Okay. I'm just gonna vote no because I'd rather all of us be on Zoom. I went to one hybrid meeting once and it was not great. Anyway, that's me.
Okay, Councilmember Wilson.
No.
Okay, Councilmember Woodall,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Yes.
and Mayor Garnes.
no. Motion fails 3-2. Now we will move on to council reports and communications.
Mayor Garza,
Oh.
we will still need a motion to
I'm sorry.
to adopt the resolution number
Yes.
that allows for the virtual.
I got you. I'm sorry. Is there a motion to continue to declaring the need for virtual meetings in accordance with AB 361
I
for
will
another
make that
30
motion.
days? We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Woodall,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
No.
Mayor Garnes.
Yes. Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. And now we will move on to council reports and communications. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. After Christmas breaks, why, it'll be good to be getting back to regular committee meetings of HCOG and others. Looking forward to it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. We had one meeting of the Beautification and Walkability Committee right before the holidays. And I think,
I'm going to
well, it
call
wasn't
for
a very
another one.
long meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to call for another one. I was just at the end.
Right. And other than that, I haven't been to any meetings, and I also am looking forward to getting back in them. I wanted to say that our little city hall cookie party was really fun, and I appreciate that happening, and I hope it happens again. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
I don't know. I have some, I guess, committee meetings coming up, but nothing to report on at this point.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall?
Well, it was mentioned earlier, but we had the ad hoc facade improvement committee meeting, and Kevin is working on the application and the letter of intent for the program, and I felt like it was a very productive meeting. And that is all I have.
Awesome, thank you. And I just am going to, I was going to call for a Walkability and Beautification Committee meeting, ad hoc meeting, but I really am going to ask the city manager to, we have to get onto that petition. So we have something to run with. We as a committee, I think, are ready to run. We are ready to knock. We are ready to send out information. So hopefully you can get a document to us so that we can actually run with it, because we're up against the deadline and we need to really get moving. So that's all I have. And I hope everyone has a happy new year. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved by Johnson.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Meeting adjourned until January 18th. January 18th at 6:30. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Take care.